Hey everybody, my name is Daryl Alvaro. Welcome back to Journey to VR. So this week I have the pleasure of hanging out with Chris Healer, who is the founder of Molecule, and you guys have been doing amazing work in VR, so thanks for taking the time to chat with us today.
Thank you.
So I have a few questions for you. When you guys are doing content, how do you're doing stuff that's rendered, like let's say it's a CG-based piece. How do you decide whether it's going to be pre-rendered, done in a game engine? Is it driven by the client? Like where are those decisions being made?
If you want wide distribution, it's far safer to have everything pre-rendered and flattened into video formats. You can play it on a phone, you can play it on a big fancy Vive, you can play it at 10K, you can play it at 2K, you can easily convert between them. You can open it in Premiere and cut all you want and reorder clips. Because it's a very known thing. Within Unity or Unreal, for instance, if you're taking this to an audience, I would only recommend that for very special circumstances where you know that you can control the device, meaning control which device, which version of the device. I mean, even for Gear VR, like an S6 and an S7 are significantly different devices in terms of capabilities. So you don't know how good the presentation is going to be unless you're actually controlling that thing. And even with a Vive, for instance, you don't know what computer is going to be on the other end of that headset. So as a business owner, my thought process comes a lot around if every single part of a project has to flow through one person, you kind of end up with a bottleneck. It's better to distribute it around a lot of people. So you have one guy who's really good at coding and another guy who's really good at compositing and another guy that's really good at 3D. And them combined make a more amazing project than all the parts feeding into one person who has to assemble and know everything about that thing, whatever it is. So if the guy typing code in Unity is also your GLSL shader, is also your publishing and rights guy to get it onto whatever app store, it makes it really difficult to hit a fast delivery schedule for these things. So I like the idea of a video sphere with a CG layer inside of it, because you can get a far more complete world with a lower threshold to entry, with interactivity, with potentially positional tracking and orientation tracking, and you can go out and shoot these elements and model these elements. So you're in a framework where you can have 20 or 30 people work on it all at the same time and really get it out quickly at a high level of quality, high level of detail.
Awesome. So I just tried your Conan experience. Was that done that way?
Yeah.
It looked like a light, like a reality capture light probe of the environment, but then the desk still felt very dimensional, and it was amazing. It looked really, really cool.
Awesome.
I found all of them. I totally won that game. Nailed it. Cool. So, if you're talking about doing video-based stuff out of the 3D app, we briefly talked about rendering. How do you guys handle rendering this massive amount of stuff? Are you rendering it local? Are you using the cloud to help you, push the content out? Like, how do you deal rendering 4K stereo images? Like, that's big.
I dream of rendering 4K.
Okay. So
because now everything is 8K or 10K.
Oh my gosh.
4K is like...
That was yesterday.
That's yesterday.
That was my test at home.
Yeah?
I liked it. I was proud with my 4K.
There's nothing wrong with 4K. I like 4K. Well, we have about 600 or 700 processors here at the office.
So you're good.
And then the workstations turn into render clients at night. And then we've also developed a way of rendering on the cloud that actually links cloud-based instances back to our office, which is really a slick method of doing it. So it's kind of not a very productized way. It's not like I could say, anyone come and render, and it's not like something we can sell, but we have a method of linking machines to our network. So we've, I think at points, had something stupid like 2,000 or 3,000 cores plugged into the office rendering for things like this.
So it lets you scale when you need to.
Lets you scale when you need to. I mean, you certainly have to pay for it, but it's better than buying all the machines ahead of time and managing them.
So you mentioned, your preference of I'd like to do this video-based dome with some CG elements. When your clients, they're finding you, they know you're doing VR stuff. How savvy are they? Are they walking in now in 2017 knowing what's going on, or 2016 knowing I want to do VR and I want to do this type of thing, or is it like you're holding their hands? Like where's that at?
No, it's we want to do VR. What should we do? And so then it's on us to be like, well, we've done this and it works, and we did this and it didn't work. So let's think about what you want to try to achieve and find the happy medium, because it's like you can come up with ideas that are difficult or impossible to produce, and you can also come up with ideas that make perfect sense in traditional perspective photography that don't make a lot of sense in VR. And I find a lot of directors are still trying to work through that transition, because there's a knee-jerk desire to fill the whole frame with action so that everywhere you look, there's something going on. In my aesthetic, that's not necessarily the best VR. I'm not, everybody can do what they want. We're all being creative, and I think this is a good time for experimentation for everyone, and everyone should be doing that. I think that the best VR I've seen is where there is no doubt what you're supposed to be looking at. There's no doubt where it's leading you. You don't have this lingering feeling like there's something behind you happening.
I missed out on the good thing.
Looking over your shoulder, and it's a much more complete experience when you're being guided by your natural curiosity, but that's the director's hand telling the viewer where they should go, or coercing them into going there. It really is the Wild West. I mean, the clients, we've had some very savvy clients come in and they're like, this is exactly what we want to do. Let's do this. And I love that. But we've also had, we've had other projects where basically every VR rule is broken, and it's like, it's difficult, because I would never want to stifle someone's creativity, and especially if they have an opportunity to experiment. Even if I don't think it's going to work, like, we'll do it anyway just to find out. And I've been proven wrong tons of times.
Excellent. Awesome. So here's a pretty fun question. In terms of content in VR, where are we? Are we in the Dark Ages, the Renaissance, the future? Like, where do you think we're fitting in on that analogy?
I think it'd be easier to map an analogy to film history.
Okay.
You've got guys like the Lumiere brothers, or even Thomas Edison himself, starting just getting an image on film. And then you've got motion picture happening, and then you've got, at some point, people actually like it, and it's an entertainment format. But that was way before sound, way before color, right? And then, another 100 years pass, and we're kind of where we're at now. I would put us in the very, very early days, like definitely pre-sound, definitely pre-color. I think we're at the stage where it's a curiosity. It's something you find in a booth at a fair, and you go in and you're like, oh my God, I've never seen this other place in the world before. I've never experienced, Syria or the jungle, or what it looks like from 5,000 feet above the ground, or underwater, or these things that are a curiosity. But I don't see yet that piece of super compelling material that people are knocking on the door and saying, oh my God, you have to see, like, we're going to stop right now and you have to see this thing. Which I do think was, a turning point in early film history, where all of a sudden people are like, there's this guy, Charlie Chaplin, you've got to see what he's doing. There's this guy, John Huston, he's doing amazing stuff, John Ford, he's doing this amazing stuff that is telling a story that really touched me, and you would be touched too, We're just on that cusp where it's compelling enough that you don't have to qualify it by saying, it's cool, it's in VR. Soon it's going to be, it's just cool, you have to see it.
Right. It's interesting, and I'm wondering how much of that is an age thing, right? Because I've just got the Vive at my house, and my kid puts it on. First thing he says is, oh my gosh, never take me out of this thing, right? He's running around and just freaking out, right? And then every kid that comes to our house, you've got to try this VR thing. Mm-hmm. Every single child that puts it on from 8 to 12 is just like mind blown.
Yeah.
So maybe we're just jaded and old, and kids are like, their minds are blown by it.
When you put the headset on and you try Tilt Brush, for instance, or you try any of the amazing games that are out there, there's this, you've got to get through that membrane of like, oh my God, this is an amazing format, because it is. But are you going to stay in it for 6 or 8 or 10 hours a day, every day?
Yeah.
It took a while for TV to get to that, but a lot of people do spend 6 hours a day watching TV, and that's just been this transformation.
Those guys aren't in production now. They're not doing true. What we're doing. Excellent. That's fun. I love that. I'd love to know what in VR, what inspires you, what's motivating you, why VR kind of.
well, in a way, VR, AR, MR, they're all this kind of big blob. They're difficult to separate at time. I mean, we can go through the definitions of those things, but in my mind, it's all one big topic, and it's like there's all these stones that haven't been overturned yet. And I feel like as we've gotten deeper in, and we're like, oh, what's under here? What's under here? You do find jewels all over the place, things you never thought of that are just on an artist level are just thrilling to find that thing existed and no one else has found it yet. I think there's a lot of jewels out there that I know that there's a lot of jewels out there that we're going to find as we go, and that playground is out there for everyone that's working in VR right now. I mean, it's so much in the early stages that when you find something new, when you find something that no one else has figured out yet, it's really like kind of a nice personal victory that you don't always experience, and
Get to put your name on it.
There
You go. That's awesome. So, a follow-up question to that: what's keeping you up at night? What scares you? What challenges are you dealing with right now? They're like, man, like this is tough. This is hard.
What keeps me up is that I keep feeling like there's aspects of story that haven't been, for lack of a better word, exploited yet. It's such a clean analogy in my mind between film history and VR history, if we can call it that. And at some point, someone was like, "Hey, there's this thing. It's called a Western. It's pretty awesome." Or, "Oh, here's a romantic comedy, and this is a thing. It's called a romantic comedy or an action movie." Or we haven't quite found those things yet. And then having found the thing going backwards, you're like, "Oh, it makes so much sense within the genre that you would do this or that." I think things haven't been stratified in that way yet because the devices are still a little in question. Is positional tracking fundamental to story, or is it just nice to have? And if positional tracking was everywhere, all of a sudden we might find something like an action VR film. It's really fun to dodge bullets with your head and to get into the action, for instance, or in a comedy or something, to actually feel like you're in a conversation with a few other actors or comedians and like join the party as opposed to just watch the party. There's all these things that we haven't, it's partially a technological limitation, partially that lightning bolt hasn't struck the artist yet to say this is a brand new thing that's amazing. And I wouldn't say it keeps me up at night, but it keeps me wondering. It keeps me thinking like, whatever that thing is, it's got to be so simple.
It's right there in front of you.
It's right there.
Just
got to see it. Yeah.
That's awesome. Fascinating. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. Really, really super helpful, and I'm sure everyone's going to enjoy it. So cheers, everybody. Thank you again, Chris.
Thank you.